Hello, is Alan there?
Is this Wayne?
Yes, it is.
You're live on the air with 96.5 CTG. How you doing tonight?
Well, that was pretty quick.
Yeah, dude. Look, I saw the phone light up. I said, that might be Wayne, so we took a chance. You could have been just some regular Joe listener that wanted to hear, can you play Freebird, man? You could have been that guy. Because we get that guy.
We got to request. That guy was at 2 shows this weekend. We got 2 requests to play Freebird.
Look,
I actually almost yelled it out in Wilmington.
I yelled it out at an opera one time about 4 years ago, but I was totally hammered. Hey, Wayne.
You were hammered at the opera. That is politically incorrect.
No, I know, but I was expecting the Bugs Bunny version. Hey, can you give us a celebrity bumper? Did you get my text?
You got it.
Do
I
it.
got
Do
it
your
right
thing.
in front of me.
Cool.
Hey, everybody, this is Wayne Nelson from Little River Band. You are listening to the original 70s soundtrack on 96.5 CTG. It's great fun.
Dude, we love it. And I love the ad-lib at the end there. It was stellar, man. Unlike Patrick Simmons. Dude, Patrick Simmons was on here a couple hours ago, and it's funny. They had the same publicist, and we fed him the same information. Tom Johnston called in the 6 o'clock hour. He was totally had it in front of him. He was ready to go. Patrick was just not happening. He didn't have it in front of him. Bless his heart.
Calling from Hawaii, he may have been on Hawaii time.
Yeah, dude, yeah, and they were both really, really great, but it's so awesome to hear the different energy and realize that those 2 very different personalities are a big reason why the Doobie Brothers are stellar.
That's absolutely right.
And speaking of different personalities, of course, you're from the Little River Band, and 2 weeks ago we had Graham Goebel on the show, also from the Little River Band from back in the day, and 2 very different personalities and 2 very different stories. Why don't you give us a glimpse into your time with LRB?
Well, yeah, boy, there's an opener to probably a 10-hour spot. Can we go that long? Can we go till?
We can do whatever.
We go till dawn?
We are as powerful as you need us to be. We'll go for hours.
Different personalities indeed, and I guess the way to start painting the picture is that Little River Band has had a whole lot of different personalities as members of the band and as a band. In fact, I mean, the difference between the music that was recorded in the mid-'70s to the albums like Playing to Win and No Rains,
sure.
Even The Net, where the band wanted to step out and take a different direction, and
the George Martin stuff too. The George Martin stuff too, right?
That is true, yeah. But at least the George Martin, the thread was there that the writing and whatever was still reflective on hits and radio and so on and so forth.
Sure.
Come The Net and Playing to Win, not that we weren't trying to get on the radio, but we were trying a very different door to get on the radio. We were going for a much rougher edge and what they called then AOR, which was adult-oriented rock,
sure.
Or album-oriented rock. I can never keep those straight. Anyway, all that to say that we jokingly call it, there was a time when the membership door was a revolving door. I mean, it was, somebody was in 1 week and then they went through the revolving door and somebody else took their place. But
absolutely.
Graham and I came from very different places in our careers. Graham wrote original music. He never went and did covers. He never worked as a working, musician and played
sure.
Gigs, if you will, and played other people's music and so on and so forth.
And I have for sure. So I totally get what you're saying. Yeah, I've played at backyard parties and deck bars and to 3 people, and I've had the Freebird guy.
Absolutely, the Freebird guy gets around. Yeah, he's popular. But Graham always had the and I admire it. Believe me, more power to him. He always wanted to do his own music, and so he spent his entire musical growth writing his own tunes, teaching himself how to play. Whereas I grew up playing gigs in Chicago, everything from R&B to blues and you know, hard rock and so on and so forth. So we were very different personalities musically, and when we collided, if you will, when we met each other, I was playing with Jim Messina's band, and we were opening for Little River Band in 1979. And the revolving door had spun, and the bass player had left, and we always from there, we always have taken the opportunity. If somebody wanted to leave the band, we always looked for somebody that could not only do the band justice, but we looked for a person that, you know, could sing, honor the vocals, so on and so forth. And that's what Graham was looking for in '79, was a bass player that could sing. And
was Wayne
part of what?
Go ahead. I'm intrigued. Was that uncomfortable for you? And what it feels like to me, the metaphor I draw in my head is like when you're invited over to somebody's house for a party, and the couple that's hosting the party starts to have a disagreement in front of you, and suddenly everybody gets really uncomfortable. So you come into Little River Band. Obviously, they needed a bass player, but Glenn is still in the band at this point, and all of a sudden, it's like, all right, the Night Owl's on the table. You know, Wayne, we want you to do the vocals. Did you feel very uncomfortable? Like, whoa, what am I getting into here? Glenn's the singer. Why are you coming at me to do this? Or
not at first, and I'll tell you why. Because Beeve used to sing lead vocals too,
right?
And I thought, like Chicago,
right? You're going to be in the rotation.
With Mac,
sure,
there would be a third voice, and it was looked at as a strength.
Okay.
What I didn't know at that point, and I was being kind of naive, but I was very new to the situation. What was uncomfortable was there was so much disagreement within the band as to direction, because there were 4 people who had written hit songs, and each one of those 4 people wanted to take the band in different ways. And then I had also got close to the drummer, who was not a writer, and he had a whole nother angle, and I became the person that people would come to say, mate,
right,
let's do it this way. Mate, this is what we should be doing, and I don't like what he's doing. And when we would tour, we had 2 separate buses, and mate, come on over to this bus, we're having a good time. And Graham would say, come ride with us, because I want to talk about, you know, shop and lyrics and so on and so forth. Graham took every moment was dedicated to his vision.
Sure, he's an intense dude.
He is very, very much so. Super organized, super aware of business and publishing and so on and so forth. And I learned a whole lot from the way Graham was. But I also had been in a band with another guy like that. Messina was exactly the same way. Very intense, very focused, and knew every angle of what he signed, where things were going, where things were headed. He was very business oriented too. So being around those 2 guys was quite an education. But the vocal part to me was okay. And Graham later on admitted that he had recruited me because he didn't want Glenn singing his songs anymore. Now, I didn't know that.
Oh.
All I knew was here was this song, and Glenn wasn't at the rehearsal, so I started singing it, and I assumed when Glenn got there, he was going to pick it up, because it was pretty obviously a song that would be a contender for a hit song. And I just naturally assumed, I'm filling in, Glenn does what he does, he comes in and he does the shows and whatever. So there was no discomfort there in that point until it started getting sticky. We go to do the record with George Martin, and Glenn had given up on Night Owls. He said, it's a good thing. You take Night Owls. We've got a third person in the rotation. And then we get to Montserrat, and we're working with George Martin, and George then mixes the record and picks my vocal for Take It Easy on Me as well.
That's right.
Now, again, I'm not aware of the politics that's going on. I'm just showing up for work.
Sure.
And whatever, and bang, bang, I get picked as the lead vocalist for Little River Band for the first 2 singles.
Awkward.
And Glenn went, time out. What's going on here?
Wow.
If I'm not going to be the lead singer for, you know, us putting our next foot forward with time exposure and a record produced by George Martin, what am I doing here? And I totally endorse what he was saying. I had no idea that was going to happen. I was honored, you know, but
and it seems to me it was a total power move there. It was a Glenn versus a Graham versus Glenn kind of a move.
Well, that, and again, not really knowing, but starting to get the picture. That's what was happening within the band.
Sure.
And then a third party was David Briggs, who had written Lonesome Loser and was a co-writer for Happy Anniversary. So he had a strong feeling about where things should go, and it was totally different than what the other two guys did. And there was, my head was swimming. By the time we got done with Time Exposure, I was like, wow, what?
Yeah, what did I get myself into?
Yeah, I mean, it was crazy. I don't want to say circus in the wrong way, but it was very, my head was spinning as to what was going on. And then immediately Briggs gets fired, and about 6 months later, Glenn says, "I've had enough. I'm leaving." So and Graham and Beebe kind of put their hand up and said, "Go do your solo album. We don't want to work with you anymore." And I'm like, wait a minute. I just left America, moved to Australia, and suddenly half the writing is gone, and we're taking on this whole new look. And as the junior member of the band, the brand new guy, I got to put my hand up and say something, but I really had no power. And it was, wow, okay, we're moving on with John Farnham, and then a new keyboard player, then a new drummer. Then
it was a good version of the band, though. I mean, John Farnham is certainly a fantastic vocalist. Your trajectory coming into Little River Band reminds me a little bit of the same story that Don Felder told us in his book. It's very much the same thing. He's like at the one time he's going from sideman basically to being a full-fledged member of a already in progress top hit band, which is intimidating as hell just to come into that situation. But then suddenly realizing that this band is way dysfunctional, and suddenly now I'm in the middle of all this drama, you know. But yeah, I totally get what you're saying for sure. Which is ironic to me. I will have to say this, that these guys seem like they were doing a little cloak and dagger stuff back in the '80s, and eventually everybody's out of the band, and suddenly, and if you could tell us a story about how Steven came to own the rights, because I have a feeling what happened is everybody took their payout upon exit of the band, divested themselves of the name for a lump sum, and then at some point in time realized, whoa, we want the name back. Is that kind of what happened?
Yeah. Well, that's it in a nutshell, yes. And when I look, we've been at odds, let's say, since to my recollection when it started was when I left the band because we didn't want to do new music anymore.
Right.
And Steven, a lot of stuff went down, and you're right, I'll get back to that, but we were standing still. We were basically treading water, playing our hits, and it was stale. I just have to say it, call it like it is. And when the opportunity came, hey, let's go out for 6 more months and do this because two people wanted to, and I said, I can't do this anymore. It's stale, and I don't want to. I just don't want to be involved in that kind of thing. It didn't go very far, and a few years later, Steven called and said, would you come back to the band? And I said, under one condition. Are we thinking about doing some new music? We did new music in 2000. We did a CD called Where We Started From.
Sure.
And I'm very, very proud of it. There are strong songs on that thing. Mm-hmm. We started out a cappella just like Little River Band should.
Right.
And we made new music. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere comes 3 people who the last I saw them in the same room were at war with each other.
Sure, yeah, we sort of got that too. Sure.
I'm going my way. Beebe left a couple of years later. All of a sudden, they've made friends, and they notify us that they are going to take the name back and tour as the original Little River Band,
right?
Which would be obviously a very confusing thing to the marketplace, to buyers, to so on and so forth.
Sure.
Let alone the fact that since they left, and so let me go back to this. You're absolutely right. Glenn left the band and came back and then left again. He signed a document, and he was paid a sum of money.
Right, I knew that.
All of the original members, they weren't all paid the same amount, because here was the deal. If you decided to leave the band, you left the band. You
Right.
signed a document saying you wouldn't use the trademark and you wouldn't create something that interfered with Little River Band.
Yeah.
Sure.
And that was a smart business thing to do. The
have
precedent
to.
was already there for bands starting to fragment. You and I had talked about Creedence,
Sure. Mm-hmm.
ELO, so on and so forth. There's plenty of precedents out there for make sure if somebody's going to leave the band, that the band that stays there is solid and
Yeah.
legal and so on and so forth. So we proceeded on, and people were leaving one at a time. And so suddenly there was this drastic shift to a band with Farnham singing lead, Graham singing high harmonies, I'm singing low harmonies, singing as high as I possibly can. It was phenomenal. Hirschfelder was a great keyboard player.
Right.
And as Graham alludes to, it was
A great
a great band.
Sure.
Stephen Housden had replaced David Briggs in '81.
Sure, he's phenomenal. Yeah, sure he was. Certainly.
He was phenomenal. The guitar parts were great. Beebe was still there. Beebe was singing. We were a vocal powerhouse. We had great arrangements. We had great visions. Here we go.
I think the Eagles said that you were live rock and roll's best singing band at that time, and that's coming from the Eagles.
Glenn Frey came and did a show with us, and we didn't know he was going to do it. It was a shock to us because we were thinking, we're of the same opinion. When we worked with the Eagles, late 70s, early 80s, we would sneak over to their dressing room and listen to them do their vocal warm-up like little kids, wow, listen to those guys. That's how it's done.
Yeah.
What we didn't know was they were sneaking to our dressing room, listening to our vocal warm-up on the same tour.
Wow.
So it was a very mutual respect.
Like Beatles and the Beach Boys.
It's absolutely, and it's another great honor to find that out. But Fry walks to the microphone that first night at Expo in '88 and says, "It's an honor to be here and to be on stage with the best vocal band in the world." And our jaws were just like,
sure.
Oh, wow! One of the guys from the Eagles just said that.
Fade.
But shortly thereafter, Graham decides to leave. He doesn't want to tour anymore. He signed the document, and so we move forward with Glenn still singing lead and some other people in the band now, Peter Beckett, as you mentioned. This cast of characters keeps growing and moving forward, and Farnham quits, and Glenn comes back, and da-da-da-da-da. And I think when you sum that all up, there's a lot of bands that have had a lot of interesting situations.
Like the Doobies. We had the Doobies on earlier, and they've had a lot of members, but it's always still been the Doobies. And I think LRB is the same thing. There have been a lot of members who've come and gone, but at the end of the day, LRB is this thing, and it's always been what it is.
It is, and look, it wasn't without trepidation that when Derek, who was the original drummer, who had left and come back as well, when he left the second time, all of a sudden everybody was gone except Stephen. And Stephen was there going, what do I do? It's a vocal band. I'm not a lead singer.
Right.
How do I do this? He reformed the band, and he kept going. And this is the point, this is kind of the crossroads where I take huge exception with what the one thing that Graham said the other day. Never at any point in the time that people were coming and going from the band did it ever affect live performances. Audiences barely knew when when John took over for Glenn.
Sure.
A couple of Glenn fans went, "Hey, that's a different lead singer."
Yeah, because look,
kind of
I work in radio. Let me give you a little something. Because I was born in the sign of water, and it's there that I feel my best. See, man, I could sit in for Glenn, right?
You could indeed.
I'm pulling your leg,
thanks,
dude.
Wayne.
No, but Alan, I know you're joking. You just sang that very well, by the way.
Well, thank you, sir.
Just like Glenn did.
I'm ready to go on tour.
To be honest,
I slayed that at karaoke.
Leave him alone. Leave that man alone.
Lots of
Go ahead,
people do. What I'm trying to say, though, is we weren't about faces. We weren't about personalities. We were about our songs.
Right.
And when I was finally faced with the decision of what am I going to do? Am I going to go look for another lead singer, or am I going to step up and just do this?
Right.
I sing Cool Change. I honor what Glenn did. Glenn sang a great melody. It's a great song.
Sure, yeah, it is.
So you could do it. You could come. The only difference is now you would step up there to the middle microphone and everybody would go, "Where did Wayne get hair?"
Yeah, I've got all my hair, dude. Now, I color it. I'm 45 years old. I won't lie to you. I'm very girly in the fact that I'm on radio, yet I color my hair like the vain little girl that I am. But hey, nobody can see me, but I color the hair.
I've got a head for radio. You should be standing where I am. So,
look, dude, we love your head. But hey, here's one thing here's a touch point from my youth. 1983, HBO, Little River Band. You're in the band at that point. Do you remember that live special that went on HBO that year?
Can never forget it. We still have people come to us with their worn-out VHS tapes and want to know where they can get it digitized. And it's you gotta get it on eBay and stuff like that, because there are a lot of people who have made copies and they keep making digital copies, but no one will release it. HBO won't release it.
You guys were in fine form. It's been on YouTube, and I remember seeing that. And here's how cool you are in the rock and roll edge of things. You're chewing gum and playing bass and singing lead vocal on the Night Owl while you're chewing gum, man. Who does that?
Well, I shouldn't have been, but it turned out to be a trademark. People still come up and ask, "How do you do that?" I said, "Well, I've got a disturbing split personality that I can chew gum and play bass and sing at the same time."
And sing, yeah. It's like, but that could go really wrong, dude. That could be like the Buffett moment where he fell off the stage just a couple weeks ago.
You could suck down the gum.
Because with YouTube now, the day you huck that gum back into your throat in the middle of the Night Owl, it's going to be all over YouTube in like 5 minutes.
The day I gag on it and pass out.
But
I
hey,
have spit it out a couple times, I'll tell you that.
Speaking of gigs, you've got a gig coming up June 14th right here in Virginia Beach, just down the street from us.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. What's it called? Neptune Stage.
Yeah,
Neptune Park
it's a real, it's outside, right on the beach. It's stellar.
Yeah, it's a great venue. We played it. This will be our 4th time, I think.
Wow.
Wow.
Great night, especially if we don't, if we catch good weather. It's just magic being right there on the sea, and you think people don't get off on cool change when we sing it standing next to the ocean.
Oh,
it's a very cool time. Yeah.
That would be awesome.
It's a Tuesday night. Maybe we can go down there. Radio road trip.
Please do.
Hey, dude, and I spent a little time in your backyard. I did 2 tours of Champaign, Urbana, Rantoul, Illinois area, just across the cornfield from Peoria there.
Funny you say that, because we just played last night with REO, who of course are Champaign brats.
Yeah.
They sounded great too. They're still playing fantastic. Alan, let me get back to one thing though. I never did finish because I keep straying. This story is so like
do it. Give us the whole thing.
The one thing that Graham said was he said that we are a cover band, and what I want to say is at no point ever when somebody left and somebody else came in to replace it with the vision of continuing the band's career and doing new material, did we ever consider ever that the new lineup was covering the old lineup.
Sure, no.
Two people left were asked to leave the band after the very first record. So the original Little River Band didn't last for more than a year and a half.
Right.
And then people started replacing people.
That's fair.
And I keep so when and now that's the moral, or not, I don't want to say the moral, that's the realistic side of it, but the legal side of it is it's right there on paper. Everybody that signed out saying we won't we won't use the trademark or the name, and we won't interfere with the promotion of the trademark in legal business terms. So when an interview pops up and we're going to be there in 2 weeks and it said that we're a cover band, I've been in this band I'm going on 32 years.
Ooh.
This band is is my life and my career, just like it was theirs, and what they did was illegal, and we had the paperwork to prove that it was illegal. It's not something that we wanted to do. We don't want to be at odds with them. There are lots of people that would love to see, a reunion, have everybody get back together and make up.
Yeah, us too,
what a
for
great
sure.
concert,
Sure, we would too.
We're just on the side going, hang on a minute. We just wanted to keep playing and have this be our career the way it was presented to us when those guys hired us, meaning me and Steven. And then we continued to create good bands that take the music out there. And people come up to us all the time to say, thank you for keeping the band alive. They know that it's not the original people that founded the band that are standing up there. Rarely do you see a band come out that's got all of them, but this is Little River Band. So that was the main thing that I wanted to put across to your listeners, is there is another huge side to the story, other than the way it was presented. So let's have some fun. What do you want to talk about?
Actually, I think we're just about ready to wrap you up there, dude, but I just want to get one more shot in there to say that, of course, you have all my contact info now. I look decent with my shirt off for 45, but I can sort of, so I won't do that to you, like do the suspenders thing. I'll try and be somewhat modest on stage, but
Okay.
I can totally, I'm a guitar player, studio guy. If you need somebody to go out on the road, I'm totally available. And Sue is face palming here next to me.
At 45, you would be drastically the youngest person in the band.
there you go.
Hey, rock and roll, dude. That would be so awesome. Well, thank you so much, Wayne. You're a totally nice guy, and thank you for giving us a call tonight and telling your side of the story.
Hey, listen, seriously, if we're that close to you in June 14th,
June 14th.
please come down.
We will try to
make to meet in person.
I'm working on a babysitter, but Sue and I might do a radio road trip. And if we go down there, should we just feed our names to some big scary dude that's doing the backstage security who will totally crush our dreams, like we're Marsha Brady standing outside Davy Jones' gig for her prom? Or
Well, I tell you what, I happen to be the tour manager, so I'm going to put your name on the guest list now. If you make it, just say your name and you're in, and if you don't, well, then we'll see you next time.
And put Sue Steward down too, because
We'll
she's totally
be
hot.
down there.
STEW or UA?
Yep, EWARD,
ARD.
Sue Steward.
You got it.
Thank you so
Cool.
much, sir.
Thanks, Wayne.
You're on the list.
Cool,
Okay.
thanks, dude.
Good to talk
We'll
to you
see you guys in a
tonight.
few weeks.
All right, thanks.
Same here.
All right,
Take care,
bye-bye.
guys.
All righty, well, we're going to pay some bills here, and that was Wayne Nelson, the Little River Band, and get right back into the
On the
music.
list.
We're on the list to get in free, man. That'd be awesome. 96.5 CTG.